So, good morning. Benvenuto da Bologna. Benvenuti il mio balcone. Greetings from my balcony in the very beautiful city of Bologna in the region Emilia-Romagna of Italy. This is Dave. I'm coming to you today with the first of probably several part production regarding 10 tips about how to travel, how to live in Bologna. Let me just give you a little idea about what this city is like. This is my balcony. I'm on the in the kind of the attic of a building that was built in the 1700s, in the early 1700s, before United States was even a thing. We're kind of right across the piazza from this interesting tower here, Torretti. I think Toretto is what it's called, Toretto San Vitale. Actually, at one point, this was part of the fortifications of the city. Yesterday, down in this piazza down here below, there was a market. There's a market about 3 days a week. I think there's going to be one on Saturday. So excuse the dark glasses, it's a little bright today. The sun is shining. It's going to get up into in the Fahrenheit scale, up into the 60s today, and I'm pretty excited about that because it's nice to be warm on this trip. So far I've been in Amsterdam, where I spent about a week and pretty much rode my bicycle in the rain there the entire time. It was cold and nasty, and I caught a cold, but I'm feeling much better now. I was also spent a little bit of time in Berlin visiting a friend there, and it was also cold and a little bit miserable there. But Bologna has been just beautiful, sunny, a little bit cool. I think it was been in the 40s a couple times, but today into the 60s, so a glorious day. Well, this production is going to be about tips regarding the city of Bologna, how to best travel here, how to best live here, how to best spend time here. The first thing I want to talk about is the food, and probably the most important thing about the city. Now, the food in Italy is spectacular, and it's well known to be probably the best cuisine on the planet. And I know you'll think, oh, I believe that Greek food is the best, or I believe that the food of South Texas is the best, or whatever. But believe me, the food of Italy is just spectacular, and it's the home of the slow food movement. It's the home of people eating locally and taking their time and enjoying food. It's an incredible thing. So just a few things. One time, many years ago now, I was a staff person for an event in Greece, and I was helping to shepherd around a large group of American college students and some of their parents. And Greece has an incredible cuisine, and the food there is really delicious. Also, like Italy, very local, very fresh. People don't use frozen food there hardly at all. And the thing that amazed me in Greece was that many of these American college students, their first question was, where can I find a McDonald's? Where can I find a Burger King? It was so sad because the food there was amazing. And of course, such restaurants exist here in Italy and in Bologna. There's both of those places and other American fast food enterprises. But please, when you come to Italy, eat the local food. Stay away from the American chains. There's a few things I want to talk about food. First of all, the types of restaurants that there are, and the types of places to buy food. And there's lots of different kinds of food establishments. Some of them, of course, the lines blur quite a bit, but traditionally there's a kind of restaurant called a trattoria. And first of all, my apologies to my native Italian speaking friends, because I'm trying, and I'm getting better at my Italian vocabulary and my Italian grammar and my Italian pronunciation, but it's hard. It's hard for an old dog to learn new tricks. And I'm certainly an old dog. But Trattoria is traditionally a family-owned restaurant. It's a small place, a simple place where simple meals are available. Mama or Nona is probably in the kitchen. Mother or grandmother's probably in the kitchen cooking. Papa's out front, running the front of house, and the food is delicious but simple. The meals are not really expensive. Probably for a meal, for a simple meal in a restaurant like this, you're going to pay anywhere from 10 to 15 euros plus whatever the cost of whatever beverages you have are. There normally is no tips expected or given. People are paid well to do the work they do in this country. They're treated well as employees and as workers. So tipping's not a thing here. The other kind of restaurant that you might come across is an osteria, and again, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of the word, but an osteria is kind of grew out of being a wine bar, and so a place where you'd go to get a glass of wine and have a little tipple in the afternoon, a little aperitivo. But they've evolved to provide full meals now, and of course, like I said, the lines blur between these different sorts of establishments. A osteria, for me, there's a couple that I go to frequently. One of them is called Dorsa, the restaurant, the wine bar of the Bear. And it's a really nice place, kind of in the university district. By the way, Bologna is the site of the University of Bologna, also known as Unibo, also known as Alma Mater Sedorium. It is the oldest university, oldest continuously operating university in the Western Hemisphere. It is from 1088. And in the background, you can hear the bells of the church. And there's churches all around. This is a country that has a lot of churches. And we'll talk about churches in a future production one of these days. But these osteria are also places where you can get interesting meals. Maybe you can go there and get a charcuterie plate, or you can get a nice pasta or a nice salad, and definitely can get some good wine or some decent beer in places like this. The final kind of restaurant that we'll mention, we'll also mention snack bars, and snack bars are everywhere. They are all over the city. They have everything from pizza, and we'll discuss pizza in a future production too, because pizza is a very special thing here, and it comes in several varieties. But there are full-service restaurants known as ristoranti, and ristoranti, normally the prices are a bit higher. They're full-service places. You go in and you sit down. You're seated by a host or a hostess, and a waiter comes and takes your order, and so it's a different kind of place. The last kind of thing I want to mention, let me just say one of the things about Bologna and why the food in Bologna is so spectacular, and I got to say, it's not my favorite food in Italy, because my favorite cuisine in Italy is in the south, where things are a little spicier, things are a little more intense, the flavors and everything. But here in Bologna, the food is delightful, and it's interesting because we are kind of in the middle of what I would call a kind of the food triangle. So Bologna, it's the home of several different famous recipes. What is called in other parts of the world Bolognese sauce, which here is called ragu, because there is no such thing as Bolognese sauce in Bologna. Who knew? And so ragu typically is a concoction made out of some kind of protein, usually some sort of meat, with in a sofrito of carrots, celery, and onions, and maybe a little tiny bit of tomato, but tomato is not the predominant flavor by any means. It is Uh, let the ambulance go by. There we go. The flavor is by no means uh, an intense flavor. It's just a delightful savory flavor. It's served with different kinds of pasta. Tagliatelle is kind of the predominant flat noodle of this area. It's an egg pasta. There's also a tortelloni, all kinds of delicious pastas that come from this part of the world. But right around the corner from here, and just about a 20 or 30-minute train ride away, is the town of Modena. And Modena is where balsamic vinegar comes from. And it's, by the way, if you think you've had balsamic vinegar, when you get to Modena, you will learn that that's not the case, probably, because the stuff that's sold in stores in the United States and even here in Italy, called balsamico. When you look at the ingredients, you know how the most predominant ingredient in the ingredient list is always the first one. Well, it's almost always red wine vinegar, which is definitely not balsamico. I want to mention, also in the speaking of Parmesan, we are also very close to the beautiful city, and also, like Modena, a very wealthy city, the city of Parma. And Parma is where Parma ham comes from, prosciutto di Parma, and where Parmesan cheese comes from. And so that's very close by too, about an hour or so away by train from this balcony, and a nice place to go hang out and realize that you're a relatively modest person when you see the clothes and the shoes and the cost of things in those cities. Modena, by the way, is also where a couple of famous sound you hear is the sound of somebody from a cafe that's putting their empty bottles in a recycling container, because this is a city that has recycling taken very seriously. Modena is also where the headquarters are for Lamborghini and Ferrara, two famous Italian car makers. So it's also known as Motor Valley. The last thing I want to talk about as far as food is concerned is a tradition in Italy that's very beautiful. It's called the aperitivo, and basically at around 5:30 or so in the afternoon, 17:30 if you are trying to be Italian. But you go to a cafe, to a little bar, and maybe you order a nice glass of wine, or a spritz, or a beer or something, and it costs a little bit more. Maybe it costs an extra euro than it normally does, or maybe they charge you an extra euro just to be there, because in addition to the wine that you buy, you're given free access to a buffet of delicious foods, and it's really amazing. The food can be incredibly good. It depends on the place, what they offer. Some places maybe just a bowl of chips or some peanuts or something, but some places and many places really elaborate aperitivo, and they may have some bread with some cheese. They may have some pasta, some salads, maybe some egg dish. But if you want to get fancy during the aperitivo time, there are plenty of places where you can go and get a charcuterie plate or a cheese plate for not very much money. We went the other night. My son and I went and kind of had appetizers in a bar in the old part of the city. For us, it was about 20 euros. We had two large platters of different assorted bolognese charcuterie, some salami rossa, some mortadella, some prosciutto, and some other things, some beautiful cheese, and some delicious roasted artichokes and roasted tomatoes, and some olive tapenade, and a big beautiful basket of assorted bolognese breads, which are a story in themselves. Really amazing food, and all that cost us 20, and plus a couple of beverages, and all that cost us about 20 euros. So 10 euros a person, and we had to stagger home, and because the food was so rich and so delicious and so on.